personally that should restart. And it was a lot of fun, a lot to talk about, very tingly, a lot of whispering, a lot of basketball tapping sounds. Obviously, it's sort of my key thing on my channel, so it was a lot of fun. So make sure you guys check that out. Also, let's make sure to hit a like on this video if you do like it. Make sure to also subscribe if you're interested in any more this type of content. I don't know why I said it in such a funny way, but yeah. With that being said, finally, let's jump into tonight's video, the top 10 trios of all time. Now, when we go on to this list, let it be known that this list we're going to be looking at is just for entertainment purposes. This is not my official list. This is someone else's top 10 list, but I am, of course, going to give my own opinion and probably list off my own top 10 later on after seeing his. I haven't seen their list, but I just needed a little bit of reminding of some great trios. We can obviously think of some right now, spit out some names and think of a list ourselves, but I think we better if we go a little bit into more detail about them. So, with that being said, this is not my list. This is not my official lineup of the list, but let's just get started and talk about it. Let's get the conversation going, I guess I should say, about the top 10 trios of all time. Also, obviously, leave a comment down below other top 10 ideas I can do, or other trios that maybe aren't going to be mentioned in this video that are very good. So, let's see here. This is on MSN.com talking about the top 10 greatest threes in the NBA history. And at number 10, they actually have a pretty important big three, at least in my opinion. The first big three of the new NBA generation. The big three of the Celtics. That is Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, which is pretty crazy to think about. Them only being number 10. Some great names, all Hall of Famers, all great players on their own, but together made a very, very, very great team in Boston. But let's see here. At number 10, this big three. I mean, I guess I can see that happening. Now, obviously, on paper, this big three definitely, at least in my opinion, underachieved. They only won one championship together, which is pretty, like I said, not, I'm assuming, what they hoped for. They did, however, have to run into a amazing player out in the Eastern Conference known as LeBron James, which at the point in time, they owned LeBron. During that time, they demolished LeBron and all of his teams. Sure, LeBron got past them sometimes, but most of the time, they were wailing on LeBron James, which was pretty sad. But again, LeBron and, who was it down that team? Ilgauskas. LeBron, Ilgauskas, and Mo Williams is definitely not going to outbeat, KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce. So, obviously, they definitely upped them on a team talent-wise. But when it comes to those three going up against the LA Lakers, now that was a challenge for them. Of course, the first time they met in the finals, Boston obviously beat the Lakers, thus winning their first but only title together. So I can see how this team can't be on the top 10 because they are such a significant sort of piece of trios of all time, because without the Celtic Big Three, there would have never been another Big Three that I am sure is going to be said later on in this list with one of the greatest players of all time. So, this being number 10, I actually can't agree with. I'm sure at that time, they all probably averaged over 20 points per game, maybe besides Ray Allen. That he's probably the odd man out. I mean, we can even go into a thing about quads, teams with the quads players, because obviously you had KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, but we also forgot a very important fourth member, Rajon Rondo, who during that time was obviously at the ends of the trio's career. Rondo was arguably the trio himself, and maybe someone else was the odd man out, but Rondo was an amazing piece. Doc was an amazing coach. They had a great bench with, Big Baby Davis, Kendrick Perkins. Who else was on those teams? Avery Bradley, I think, played with them, or maybe he was he on those teams? I don't remember. I think players of all time, and Kevin Love is a very, very, very good player. So, I think so. And then obviously them beating the team with the best record of all time. The 73-9 Golden State Warriors with the first unanimous MVP, Steph Curry. So, that sort of title as well means probably more than the win over the Lakers, even though obviously that Kobe Laker team was phenomenal and probably should have won. It's not the 73-9 Golden State Warrior team, which probably would have beaten any other team in history, besides maybe the Chicago Bulls in like the 2017 or 2018 Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant, which, in my opinion, the best team and most talented team of all time. So, man, I mean, obviously LeBron during that finals was out of his mind, played like an actual non-human. He just played like a god of basketball, and he was playing very well. And it was so surprising the elevation that LeBron had. Kyrie was just steps behind him, playing immaculate as well. I think they were the first duo players to put up 50 or 40 points in one single game as teammates ever, which was so crazy. Obviously, we have the Game 7, which, you know, LeBron's defense and Kyrie's offense won them that game and won them that title. And that title is just so important to not only LeBron, but a whole franchise. And not only that, and the entire NBA. That 3-1 deficit was just an absolute thing that people are going to be talking about for years and years and years and decades. You know what I mean? It's a crazy title. So I guess arguably they could be higher, but probably not. Next up on the list at number 8 is Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, and Tom Henson. Interesting. Okay. So, obviously, if you just say the name Bill Russell, it's probably because of championships. Bob Cousy as well, being one of, you know, being one of Bill Russell's most tenured teammates, won a lot of titles with Bill Russell as well. I've never really heard of Tom Henson before, besides like NBA 2K cards and stuff like that. So it says here, together Russell, Cousy, and Henson clicked and were such a dominant trio. They won 6 NBA championships together in 7 years. However, a higher ranking is prevented as the trio were surrounded by several other skilled players and faced teams with far less talent, not to mention far fewer teams. That is such a perfect example on why I don't really rank, you know, players like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain higher up on like my all-time list, is because of those reasons as well. During that time, the players that were on the Boston Celtics were arguably the best players in the league. So of course they're going to be crazy, you know, winning percentages. I do think Bill Russell by himself is an amazing player, but they also had the best team in the NBA during that time. He was the Golden State Warriors of this time. So that is also why I don't really rank Bill Russell super duper high on my all-time list. He's top 10 for sure, but I cap him around that area. So but obviously winning 7 out of 6 championships in 7 years together is definitely amazing. So I do think you could probably put them over LeBron and Kevin Love and Kyrie just because of that reason alone, because that is hard to just keep playing basketball for that long and that many years. Of course, we know LeBron went to like 12 or 11 straight NBA finals, but doing that but also winning is very tough. So I can see them being 8, but talent-wise, definitely not over LeBron, Kevin Love, and Kyrie, at least in my opinion, but still a great team. At number 7, they have Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili of the San Antonio Spurs. Their big 3. Wow. I would put this team maybe higher up on the list. I need to see who else is on this list, but bro, you have the best power forward of all time, the GOAT of power forwards, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, who is an extremely underrated point guard in sort of terms of basketball success and Hall of Fame wise, and Manu Ginobili, who, again, I talked about before in one of my videos, could have been a multiple-time All-Star, a multiple-time player who's averaged plus 20 points per game, but he took the winning route instead was shown on stats or anything like that. So, wow. If we're just talking talent, this team is immaculate. It says here, the most boring big three was simply a well-oiled machine. They had unpredicted, sustained success for a small market team, winning five championships in 6 finals appearances, only losing to, again, arguably one of the best teams of all time, the Miami Heat team with that trio, which may or may not be on this list. I guess we're gonna have to see, but yeah, like I said, you could argue this team or this trio even being higher up on the list. I'm gonna swipe and see who's ahead of them, which I'm gonna be very interested. But bro, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili, it's one of the best dynasties of NBA history. You know, we talk about, the Celtic dynasty and the Lakers and the Warriors that they just had. There was a point in time where the Spurs were the team to beat, and their franchise was perfect. They had one of the greatest coaches of all. They do still have one of the greatest coaches of all time. They had one of the greatest players of all time. The way they developed their players, they have so many great players who have came from absolute just raw player talent to amazing players that have spewed out of there, and finding great players in the draft and things like that. So the Spurs are just an amazing franchise, and they also have one of the most amazing trios. 6. Okay, well, man. I don't know. This is tough. Number 6, they have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors. Wow, yeah, that is very, very, very tough. That's very interesting because do you take the trio of Steph, Klay, and Draymond as if they were the best players on the team, so without Kevin Durant, or are you also taking them as their entire careers together as a trio, or are you taking them as their best and prime of that being the big three? So like the 73 and 9 Golden State Warriors big three, or like the 2018 big three of them, but without Kevin Durant. I don't know where that really ranks. So it says here the first big three in Golden State meshed nearly perfect together. Their legacy is the opposite of the big three of Miami, as they started on a short end of a finals choke job. After they were up 3-1, Curry, Thompson, and Green were responsible for a 73-win regular season, for the best record in the NBA twice, 2 finals appearances, and a championship. So it looks like it's taking them as their best sort of grouped years together. So I guess that does make sense. They won, an NBA championship together. Asterisk, a little bit of an asterisk. You have to admit it. With LeBron just playing by himself and Matthew Dellavedova being the second best player, it counts. But to what degree does it count? I guess because everyone talks about, this championship doesn't count. This championship doesn't count. Well, does that championship count? I'm not entirely sure. But are they better than the Spurs big three? I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to say no. Even just talent-wise. I mean, I know, obviously, Steph Curry is one of the greatest players of all time, one of the best defensive, locked in, game out LeBron James of the Miami Heat. An older D Wade, but definitely a very capable Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, who is arguably one of the best stretch fours of all time. So, talent-wise, yes, very, 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 very talented, but executed very poorly. We all know. Obviously, losing to the Dallas Mavericks is the biggest asterisk that this big three fell to, and that Dallas Maverick team was very well put together, almost perfectly put together. They should have lost to like maybe 5 games against this Miami Heat team, but they didn't, and they beat them in 6, I think. So that was definitely very surprising, at least in my opinion, being a basketball fan back then. They did also lose to the Spurs another time, but again, that Spurs team was almost perfectly put together. 3 future Hall of Famers, maybe even 4. Well, definitely 4 at that time, maybe 4. This, now knowing what happens to Kawhi Leonard, definitely 4 future Hall of Famers on that team, plus a Hall of Fame head coach. You can kind of see why that team was probably more well equipped to beat than just the pure talent of LeBron and D Wade, and Chris Bosh. So, could you put this big three up higher if you really wanted to? You probably could argue that, but they definitely underachieved. And just like talking about the Celtic big three, it's underachieved, and that's pretty sad to think about when you're thinking about LeBron in his prime and D Wade being such an amazing player still during that time. Chris Bosh being a really good player, averaging like 15 points, like 8 or 9 rebounds. Very fun player to watch, but when it comes to actually executing and winning, they didn't do what they said they were going to do. You know, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, not 8. Number 4 here. Oh my God, yep, that's exactly what I was going to talk about. One of the big threes that I was, thinking of. Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, and Kevin McHale at number 4 for the Boston Celtics. Wow, 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 wow. Now this is a big three. You could even argue being, yes, higher up on this list, and I probably would also agree with you. If you're someone who's not very well known in the sort of 80s, early 90s of basketball, please look into the late 80s, or even mid 80s Boston Celtics team with Larry and McHale and Robert Parrish. My God, those teams were so dominant. It was insane. Of course, if you also know that, you know that injury was also a thing that was sort of on, not on the Celtics side during that time. They had a lot of injuries that were going on that didn't really take them to their true heights that they were hoping for. That was very sad. And also running into another God Squad out in LA, the Showtime Lakers, which we may or may not see later on in this video. I'm not entirely sure if they will, but in my head I can think of a trio on that team that may be pretty good. But yeah, you have Larry Bird, again, top 10 player of all time. A lot of people say it's their GOAT, their best player of all time, most talented, most skilled. I could definitely see that. The man was a passer, a scorer. He could defend when he wants to. The man was very skilled around the rim, very skilled with the basketball, insane three-point shooter. You had Kevin McHale, which at one point in time you could argue was the best the GOAT of power forwards, I guess you could say, before there was a Tim Duncan. And Robert Parrish was a monster inside of a center / power forward as well. Very amazing defensive center, a very smart, high IQ center. Man, that team was crazy good. As I see here, there's no need for a Mount Rushmore of NBA front courts more, because there's only one that did it like these three. Pairing 3 stars together that did not take away from the other is difficult, and the Celtics had mastered it. Bird shooting and passing, McHale's moves in the post, and Parrish's control in the paint led to 3 titles against some of the stiffest competition in NBA history. A la the Showtime Lakers, the Bad Boy Detroit Pistons, the emergence of Michael Jordan, and they really gave them, all the run up for their monies, and they did very well against them. So Dennis Rodman, and yes, the GOAT, Michael Jordan, at number 3. So there's actually 2 other big threes that they think is better than this one. That's very interesting. Obviously, they won all their finals appearances because we all know Michael Jordan is undefeated in the NBA Finals. I think they won 3 titles together. Well, let's say if the 3 Bulls players played together longer in the city of Chicago, would have more to brag than 6 championships. Yeah, it says that. Get this, all 3 of them made the first. Get this, all 3 of them made the first team All NBA defensive team in the year 1995-1996 season. The only thing that could stop them did stop them. Jordan retiring. So this team did play, I think, 3 years together, winning 3 championships together. Because I think Dennis Rodman only has that many titles, and then he went to the Spurs afterwards, or somewhere after. That is crazy. Now, obviously, Scottie and Michael Jordan is argued, or are, sorry, I think it's are, the greatest duo of all time. So they're obviously up there, 1 and 2. You can argue some other duos, I guess, if you want to, but Scottie and Jordan, definitely amazing by themselves as a duo. But add again Dennis Rodman, maybe not being the greatest trio and not the best fit altogether. Could you argue them being number 1 because they have Michael Jordan? No freaking duh. No duh. You can argue them being number 1. They have the GOAT, and Scottie Pippen ain't no scrub himself. Could definitely be, a player by himself on a different team and still could have been an amazing Hall of Fame talent if you wanted to be. Dennis Rodman, we all know, being a crazy defensive monster, rebounding god, and, definitely a character. So, I agree with him being top 3. They should definitely be top 3. They have one of the greatest players of all time, a GOAT, and Dennis Rodman, who's a crazy, crazy, crazy player himself, winning every single championship they've ever played with together, because obviously they played it with Michael Jordan, so that definitely makes a lot of sense. Being a number 3 definitely could be higher. This was the other big 3 I was thinking of that could have been number 1, and that is the trio of Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and James Worthy. Yes, your boys are talking about it, the Showtime Lakers. James Worthy is a player that I feel like is also very underrated in NBA history. This guy was known as a bucket getter and could have been the best player on his own team if he wanted to be, but he decided to go the smart route and chose, the more career path and sticking around Magic Johnson because he knew that that man was going to take him to the promised land, and he did. In 1982, James Worthy was drafted to play alongside Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to create the gold standard of NBA Big Threes for nearly 3 decades. The trio was so talented, so unstoppable, and fit so well together. In 7 seasons, they made the finals 6 times and won 3 of them together. I'm trying to think. Obviously the Celtics, and I think they lost to Detroit as well, so I think 2 of them were the Celtics and 1 of them was the Pistons. I think that they lost in the finals. Magic is the greatest passer to have ever lived, combining with Kareem's unstoppable offensive game and Worthy's big game cuts. The Showtime Lakers were not only great, but a show. That's very true. Man, that is crazy. There's a trio that's better than this one. That's really hard to pick. I think the last 3 we were talking about, the Showtime Lakers, the Bulls, and the Celtics, those ones you could probably place any which way you want to. You could put, Larry Bird at number 2, or, the Bulls at number 2, or the number 1. You could put any of these at number 1, but I think, man, this is a very tough list of teams. This top 4, very, very, very tough. I wouldn't know where to put them. I think, man, do I put Michael Jordan over this trio? I think I might, because again, it's the talent is all there. I mean, obviously Kareem wasn't Kareem during that time. He was very old. He wasn't, Milwaukee Bucks Kareem during that time. James Worthy was an amazing player. But is that better than Scottie and Dennis Rodman? obviously you have Magic and Michael, which Michael is the better player out of the two, because again, GOAT, Michael Jordan. But playing together, man, the fit that they all had. Magic, you could play Magic with a seventh grader and have him be one of the best players of all time. You know what I mean? Kareem was still a very great player during that time. James Worthy was a great player during that time. So I think I will keep them over Michael, Scotty, and Dennis Rod. Okay, I knew this was gonna come. Oh my god. At number 1, they have the trio of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant at number 1 for the Golden State Warriors. Man, do I believe this? Do I think that this is the best trio of all time? That's a tough question. Okay, let's see what it says here actually. It says here the 3 future Hall of Famers that are made up of 2 of the greatest shooters of all time and the second greatest offensive player of all time. I'm assuming they're saying behind Michael Jordan. Are 32-6 in the postseason with 2 NBA championships together. Several big threes have been together longer and have accomplished more, but none are, and it's just like in italics writing, better. None have been better. And I think that is the question. The title of that article was the top 10 greatest trios of all time. The title of this video is the top 10 greatest trios of all time, not the top 10 best or most talented trios of all time, which, in my opinion, and I've said this before, are very different things. Talent and skill versus greatness and the way they carry the game. I think those are 2 very different arguments. That's why I still think Michael Jordan is the GOAT. He's the greatest player of all time. No one will ever have another career like Michael Jordan. But I think LeBron James is the best and most talented player of all time. I think they're 2 different arguments. So, do I think that big 3 is the greatest? I don't think they're the greatest. They are without a doubt in my mind the best and most talented trio of all time, though. Kevin Durant, the man can put up 60 points in his sleep if he wanted to. He can pull up from half court. He is 7 feet tall, handles like a amazing point guard, post moves, has now elevated his defensive game, at least during that time. Prime Kevin Durant, we're talking like finals 2017 KD, where he was dominating LeBron James. You have Steph, again during that time, could have been another MVP season for him. Klay Thompson just raining down threes, an amazing defender. That team, I said it before in a video, is the best and most talented team of all time. So, yes, they are the most talented trio of all time, but if we're talking about all together, a trio being together, are they greater than, the Showtime Lakers trio, or the big 3 Celtics, or Jordan and Pippen and Dennis Rodman? I don't know if I can say that or not. I'm not entirely sure about that. Let me know down in the comments. Let me know down in the comments what you think the greatest trio of all time is, and we can settle it then. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully it was fun. Sorry it wasn't like an official, like my top 10 trios of all time. I just saw this article and was like, oh, that would be a fun video. So